October 20th, 2022. I am Aaron Schatz, editor-in-chief of Football Outsiders, joined as always by Mike Tanier for our Thursday show previewing this week's games. And this week's games suck. So I'm going to just put it to you straight from the front. This week, we have a lousy slate of games, in part because the two best teams in the league by DVOA are on bye this week, Buffalo and Philadelphia. But if any of these games are intriguing and interesting, the most interesting, intriguing one, well, is probably San Francisco, Kansas City. But the second most intriguing and interesting one is probably Atlanta at Cincinnati. And so we brought in an expert on these teams, and that is Robert Weintraub, who folks know from writing for the site, usually in the offseason, writing for Football Outsiders ALMANAC. Folks know he is a Cincinnati Bengals fan who lives in Atlanta. So he is very familiar with both teams. But before we talk about Atlanta and Cincinnati and the other games of this week, I do want to remind you, first of all, thank you for watching the show. Please tell your friends about the show, like and subscribe to the show, watch live 1 o'clock Eastern, and please ask questions and make comments in our discussion thread. And don't forget that our shows are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, and you can play with us and double your first deposit up to $100 with promo code OUTSIDERS. Try Battle Royale, which is a 6-round best ball style draft with simpler chances to win, or Pick'em games, where you can wager on players' chances to go over or under, even in states where traditional prop betting is not currently available, like my state, Massachusetts. Underdog is the fastest growing fantasy site around. Join the fun at underdogfantasy.com or download Underdog in the App Store and use promo code OUTSIDERS right now to double your first deposit up to $100. All right. So Atlanta at Cincinnati. What are your feelings about this season as a Bengals fan, man? Because things started like, oh God, the Bengals, everything's going wrong. And then the last couple of weeks have been good, and they've started to climb in advanced metrics. They're like 12th in DVOA, and the ESPN's FPI has them as the third best team in the whole AFC.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me on the week that sucks.
Yes.
It's casting, I believe, but I'll take it. Well, going back to the original part of the question, it's only Cincinnati's start to the season was only a disaster, as some people put it, when you put it in the frame of going to the Super Bowl last year. Hard to avoid, I grant you. But it's not like this was a team that was expected, as we know from Football Outsiders Almanac and various other places, that was necessarily going to be a Buffalo or Kansas City level team, at least not off the bat, right? So Joe Burrow had appendectomy surgery and missed basically the entire summer. They have 4 new offensive linemen and a new tight end. There was a lot of stuff to work out. Pittsburgh threw the kitchen sink at them. The Bengals still should have won that opening week game if they could have just had their long snapper make it through healthy and not had a PAT blocked on the last play of regulation. They've lost 3 games by 8 points, all on the last kick of the game. That's the sort of underlying, nobody's really panicking. There's people in the national media who are fire Zach Taylor. I mean, I don't know where that comes from. First of all, Marvin Lewis lasted there for a decade and a half, never winning a playoff game. Zach Taylor could be the coach in 2087 at this rate, so he's not going anywhere. That's not really the big picture. But listen, there were some problems. The offense was terrible. They were last in DVOA on first downs before last week. Their main issue on offense, the defense has been pretty solid, especially in the first 5 games. They had some issues against the Saints. We'll get into that in a second. But they were really caught between, and this has been a recurring issue since they got Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is a much better player and is much more comfortable out of the shotgun, surveying the whole field, not going under center and trying to run a wide zone running scheme that they seem insistent on trying to use in Cincinnati. And after week 4 of pounding their heads against the wall, not being able to run against loaded or unloaded boxes, really, they finally came to the realization that they were just going to switch to a gap scheme, go more shotgun. Against the Saints, they only ran 2 plays, I think, under center the entire game. I think they finally decided that let's go with what our personnel is good at rather than, what we like on the drawing board or on the dry erase board. And, it definitely has helped. It definitely helped against New Orleans in particular. I think you saw in that game what, sort of the ideal of what Cincinnati is going to face this year, what they want to have this year, because teams are going to do everything they can to take away the long pass. We know that. That was going on last year too. But if you can, work the short passing game and run the ball more effectively, they've run the ball for 5.5 yards per carry basically in the last 2 games. If you can marry those two and get the concepts working together as they envision, then you're going to score a lot of points. And they did obviously against the Saints. Overall, the Bengals, the defense has kept them in these games. They haven't given up a second half touchdown all year, which is pretty astounding. They're high up in all the underlying stats. Some of them you mentioned. They're high up there in point differential. They're high up there in points, net points per drive. I mean, overall, they're playing pretty well. They've gotten a little bit of bad luck. They've had some ill-fated games and ill-fated turnovers, and definitely had some poor offensive efforts. But overall, I think, I never panicked, and I'm a panicker. So I didn't really think that there was too much of an issue. People were overblowing it because of their Super Bowl trip last year. Now, coming up, they're in the midst of a 4-game stretch where they actually faced the 4 top teams by DVOA in running, all 4 of them: Baltimore, Cleveland, New Orleans last week, and now Atlanta. And this is while they're missing DJ Reader, their elite run stopper. His backup, Josh Tupelo, went out last week, and now Logan Wilson is hurt too, their middle linebacker. So it's going to take an all-hands-on-deck effort to slow down the Falcons, who are an unbelievable running team. It's like playing a service academy. You never really have enough time to prepare for a team like that. They don't want to throw the ball at all. So now Marcus
the Falcons are number 1 in run offense. Yeah. I will point out, I went and looked. If you take out all Cordarrelle Patterson runs, they drop to 9th.
They're way down.
But there is still, Mariota being able to use his legs as well as Algier and Huntley.
Yeah, Cordarrelle was out last week. They put up 168 yards on the 49ers. Yeah. I mean, they're still getting the job done. And the key for the Bengals is going to be what they kind of did against the Saints. The Saints put up over 200 yards on them. Granted, 3 of those runs counted for like 100 of the yards, all 3 in a row. It was a bit misleading, but the point was they were a little bit willing to let that happen. And in the red zone, they forced 4 field goals and knew that Andy Dalton wasn't going to beat them for a touchdown. The question is, can they do the same thing with Mariota? And I don't see why they can't. He doesn't know that Kyle Pitts is on the team, apparently.
Kyle Pitts had like a touchdown last week.
He did finally have a touchdown. That worried me because now, it seems like
now they may realize that he's on the team and throw to him.
I think Arthur Smith was the one who didn't realize he was on the team for a couple of weeks when he was only playing about 20 snaps a game.
Exactly.
But the best run defense for the Cincinnati Bengals should be their offense. It's just outscore them and say, okay, you can't run the ball anymore. You can run the ball 5 yards a clip, but we're up by 2 touchdowns. We don't care. And really against the Bengals, particularly from the second quarter on, after a little bit of a slow start, it's the first time the Bengals, against the Saints, that the Bengals looked like the Bengals that I was seeing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Boyd, and they mix in it. Everyone's involved there. And it was more underneath stuff than what we see in the past. Again, probably facing a ton of cover too. But it looked the way it was supposed to look for the first time, I think, all year.
Yeah, and the targets were evenly distributed between the big 3 receivers really for the first time. There's been some talk. Tyler Boyd wasn't getting involved, and Higgins has been hurt a little bit. And I think Burrow, there's no question that, when the time comes to make a decision, his mind automatically defaults to Jamar Chase, and then he has to talk himself out of it a little bit. So you can't blame him. Obviously, we saw what Chase can do, but I think he made more, and the coaching staff made more of a concerted effort to spread the ball around, work everybody. Saints had no answers really. And Cincinnati just has had a real problem in the first quarter this year. I mean, it's the opening drives when they score or move the ball at all, they look like the team that we expect. But it seems like it's taken them a while just to, maybe they don't realize their games are starting at 1 o'clock. They're on Central Time or something. I'm not sure. But
both of these teams have actually been much better after halftime, but on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Both offenses have been better after halftime and both defenses have been better. So there's really no advantage there for either team. And there's really no advantage for for betting, because it's not like the offenses have been bad, but the defenses have been good before halftime, right? So,
but I think the Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator of Cincinnati, has clearly been very good with his adjustments, and they've done a lot of things to obviously slow down. I mean, not just the Saints last week, but they've played, Miami and Baltimore are good offenses who didn't crack the end zone in the second half. That's why Cincinnati is able to make these comebacks, even when they've fallen short. They've been down double digits basically in every game, and yet they keep coming back. And a large part of that is because they're keeping the other team from scoring in the second half, touchdowns in particular. So we have to give the defense a lot of credit, but they are shorthanded, and it's going to take quite an effort to, not just slow down the Falcons' running attack, but not get suckered into selling out, slowing down everything that they're doing in their various tricks. They've had a lot of interesting schemes and formations, Atlanta. And, you don't want to get tricked into that and then give up a big play in the passing game kind of out of nowhere. That's been a tenet of Bengals defenses in the past. So I'm hoping we don't see that on Sunday.
And that's what the Falcons do to a lot of opponents, because it is, we're in the pistol, we're running option, and then they get a deep shot, and they get like somebody like Zacchaeus, a deep shot.
Right.
By the way, Pierrot LeFou says, Barrow likes the shotgun snaps. How are you going to burn the clock? It's this weird thought, and it's been going around Twitter, that like you can't run out of shotgun consistently. You can run an almost full running game out of your shotgun set, and you can slow the game down, and you can burn clock from that formation.
Even inside runs, even because he says Mixon runs heavy. You can do inside zone. You can do pulling guards. You run quarterback power out of shotgun. Why not just run halfback power out of shotgun?
Right. And one of the things is that Zach Taylor doesn't like a lot of those bells and whistles in his blocking schemes, and that is a little bit of a problem. But there's still things you can do with it.
Yeah, it's really Frank Pollock, I would say. I would default to him. He doesn't particularly seem to like it.
Right.
Not that Zach loves it either, but Zach is definitely willing to. And they did this back in, I think it was 2018 or 2019, Zach's first season, whatever that was, 19. They were having a horrible time running the ball. They couldn't do it. They had a bye week. They switched their entire running scheme over to like a pin and pull system that we're seeing a little bit more now, out of that wide zone. They're basically just doing it again. And I think in this case, the fact that they have a lot more veterans on the line, new to each other, but they are, not new to the league. When you're talking about Karras and Kappa and Collins and those guys, they're just able to adjust to it a lot easier. And I think they're just more comfortable, and they're more comfortable with each other, which stands to reason. And, I think that the best football is yet to be played by that offensive line and the offense in general.
The Logan Wilson injury is really important, obviously, for the Bengals run defense. But the other injury that's really important is Casey Hayward, the cornerback from Atlanta, is now on IR.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably end up with A.J. Terrell covering Jamar Chase. And A.J. Terrell had otherworldly charting numbers last year. He does not have otherworldly charting numbers this year. He's given up some stuff.
He's coming off a little pull in the hammy, too. He's coming off a little bit.
Their other shooter on the outside is a guy from a second-year player named Darren Hall, who's had only 6 targets, faced only 6 targets so far this season. So, I'm seeing Higgins taking advantage of that dude.
Darren Hall goes down, John Oates comes in, right?
And T. Higgins. Will A.J. Terrell guard T. Higgins, the all-Clemson matchup? That's what they've been talking about, but I don't think that'll come to pass.
Then Chase is just going to eat this poor kid up.
Done as much zone as they could possibly do.
Unless they do the old Belichick thing of put your best corner on the number 2 and double the number 1.
Yeah. You need a front 7 for that.
Yeah.
Right. That's the other problem with the Falcons is their pass rush is really poor. They're last in pressure rate according to PFR. They're 26th in ESPN's pass rush win rate. They're starting some guy named Adedo Kunbo Ogundeje, who was a 5th-round pick last year and is injured and didn't play last week.
I'm glad you tried that, because I didn't want to attempt that insult our friends who in the family. I'm not going to even say it now.
Yeah. No disrespect to Nigerian people whose names I mangle, but he is he's a second-year, 5th-round guy, and he was injured last week, so I don't even know if he's playing this week. And behind him, there's rookie Arnold Ebiketie, and then not much more.
And Ebiketie has good pass rush, sort of traits. So we'll see how that, but he hasn't done anything yet. He's a rookie. He doesn't know what's going on yet. And, the Falcons are just going to do what we talked about, what the Saints tried to do last week, and were pretty effective at. run the ball as much as possible, hog the clock, keep the possessions down, hope for a turnover, and try and swipe one. And it's worked for them pretty well so far. They've been in every game and they've covered every game, which is also unusual, right? 6-0 against the spread.
Falcons are 6-0 against the spread. Yep.
Oh God.
So
we've come to this.
It's time to end that.
Are they talking about the Falcons in Atlanta? Like, I never know how much they talk about, like, on local radio, because they've got all the, college sports is such a big deal down there. Bulldogs, such a big deal. Few whatever, Georgia Tech fans too and stuff. Like, I mean, how is the Falcons? Are people like, hey, we're 3-3 or whatever they are? Like, our offense is playing well. Look at all this stuff. Or are they like?
Yeah, I think the hardcore fan is, a little bit pleasantly surprised, I think you'd say. But generally speaking, the sports fan in Atlanta is still recovering from the Braves going out last week. And that was a crushing blow after 6 months of really paying close attention to that race and being defending champs in baseball. So that hurt. And, it's going to take a while. And as you say, college football is not only much bigger than pro football down here, but the SEC is not just Georgia and Alabama. You got a lot of Tennessee fans down here, a huge amount in Atlanta, a huge amount of Florida and Ole Miss fans. There's a real bouillabaisse of Southeastern Conference football in Atlanta specifically. And that just hogs a lot of the attention and the frontal lobes of sports fans down here. And the Falcons, when they had Michael Vick, that was one thing. When they went to the Super Bowl, that was one thing. But a 3-3 team that's overachieving a little bit, but still doesn't seem to have much in terms of excitement to them. And even then, the 2 top 10 picks on offense that they drafted the last couple of years aren't even getting the ball. So they're basically like Georgia Tech, running that triple option from a few years ago. It's like, okay, it's nice that they win, but what, do I really have to watch the whole game? I mean, it's that kind of feeling generally down here. Now, if they make a shocking run, including a playoff run, they'll obviously get more attention. But for the time being, they're deep down where, Hawks preseason and now just opening day is on the sports fans calendar.
I have a prop, by the way.
Yeah, you do. What's your play here?
Well, first of all, my play of the week. Actually, I'm going to wait on the play. I have a prop just to throw it out there. I'm not advocating this one. Jamar Chase and the mysterious Kyle Pitts, 3+ receiving touchdowns combined, plus 350.
I can see Chase getting 2. I just have a hard time seeing Pitts getting any.
Yeah, it's almost like if Chase gets the 2, that guarantees Pitts does not get 1. And if Chase gets 1, Pitts will get 1. Yeah. It's hard to see them getting to 3, isn't it? Unless Chase gets 3.
Yeah, I would probably at around plus 500 or so be interested.
Yeah, it has to be higher.
Yeah. Exactly. And I'm also, now my play of the week, I have a rule about not betting Falcons games. However, I'm down. I'm minus 100 right now. I'm down a unit for the year because these picks have not been going well. And I'm going with this game, same game parlay. Bengals straight up. I don't trust the spread. Bengals straight up and the under. I love the under. I love the rain. Bengals straight up and under at plus 160.
What is the number?
Is it 40?
47.5.
Yes, high.
47.5.
47.5. It's high.
For a team that's exclusively a running team against a team that has offensive issues so far this year, I think that's a bit high. You never know. One team might get a couple of turnovers and just put up a huge number, but it seems unlikely. I would definitely look at the under myself on that one.
Yeah, this isn't a points off turnovers under game like with 2 turnover prone quarterbacks. This is ball control quarterbacks, and that's where, or especially Mariota. So you look towards that under.
I will say the FO picks like the under in this game.
Mm-hmm. I checked them.
So Bengals minus 6.5 against the spread. What would your pick be if you had to pick against the spread?
I would probably go with the Bengals, but that's why I create these parlays so I don't have to think about it.
Right. Yeah, I'm not especially sanguine about that number. That seems a bit high to me too. Not even considering the fact that the Falcons have covered every game. Just in general, I mean, the Bengals just, even their blowout, quote unquote, blowouts are tight until midway or late in the fourth quarter when they, put away touchdown. They just play close games. That's how they've been. It's how it's been for a while now. They never get blown out, which is nice. Nice change in my life. But on the other hand, it's asking them to guarantee a double-digit win or even a touchdown win at this point is a little bit.
This is a hard one to bet because, like, I'm with you on that. Like, especially with Atlanta being 6-0 against the spread, it feels like an underdog cover. On the other hand, that Casey Hayward injury against these receivers really has me thinking that's going to really hurt.
Yeah.
So if I had to play, I think I would play the Bengals.
Yeah, and it's an important stretch for Cincy because I mentioned the running attack they're facing, but their next 3 games: Falcons, they have the Browns, and they have the Panthers. And you get a little run there, and then go in the bye, and then the schedule definitely takes a downward turn from their perspective in the second half of the season. So it's even Burrow said it himself this week. This is a critical stretch for them, and if they can, get to 6-3, nobody remembers the fact that they scuffled off the top of the season, and they're in good shape in the playoff picture, and take it week by week from there. So, but lose a couple or even one at this stage, I think they're focused. I think they're have that in the back of their minds that these are some teams that they need to beat. And if they're a real contender this year, they will.
Yeah.
All right. Sticking in the AFC North, let's talk about some of the other games this week. Cleveland at Baltimore. This is the most important game for Super Bowl odds, basically because of the Ravens. The Ravens make the Super Bowl 15% of simulations with a win, 9% with a loss. The Browns, it's 1.5% with a win and 0.3% with a loss. Like I said, Ravens, and also, like I said, this is a terrible week. Last week, there were 2 games where the Super Bowl leverage was over 20%.
Wow.
This week, this game at 7% is the highest. So, yeah.
And to be clear, when we have these odds, you have a Deshaun Watson coming to the rescue for the Browns later in the season priced into this.
Yes, the odds for making the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl include the idea that Deshaun Watson comes back later in the season, although because the Browns offense has been pretty good so far, the bonus that I'm giving when he comes back is smaller than it used to be.
Interesting.
Yeah. Defense has been their issue, not offense.
Oh, their defense is 31st in DVOA and terrible against runs, especially runs up the middle.
Yeah. I did this last week. I'm doing the updated stats this week. Browns defense on first down, 4.6 yards per rush allowed. Browns defense on second down, 5.4 yards per rush. And the Ramondre Stevenson 3rd and 10 memorial. Browns on third downs up to 6.3 yards per rush. Teams are just happily, like 3rd and 4, or 3rd and 10 last week, but 3rd and 4, that's a running down against the Browns. Because they're averaging that much.
That was a give-up play. That Ramondre Stevenson run was a total give-up, we're going to punt play, and it got a first down.
Right. It was
a give-up play by the Browns, too, though. That's the problem.
I thought you meant the defense gave up. Like, the defense gave up 4 times in that game.
No, I mean, the offense was like, that was Belichick going, all right, run for 3 yards, and then we'll punt. And then he ran for 14 or whatever,
Right. And that's all critical against the Ravens, who want to run the ball with Lamar, want to run it with Latavius Murray, and want to be able to control the game in that respect.
Matthias 1 says, I'm assuming about this game that it's an interesting matchup between 2 teams who seem to be going in opposite directions. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'll have to explain that a little bit more. I can't tell what direction the Ravens are going in because, they are 3rd in DVOA. Like, we're the only people out there who have them higher than Kansas City, and I know that's weird. But they're horrible in the fourth quarter, and they've given away these huge leads in these games. And it's not like they're on a downward. They're not really going down, but they're not really going up. They're just kind of like
one's going
kind of waiting for this fourth quarter thing to stop.
Yeah. They're circling the drain on different hemispheres, right?
Right. They're both going in different directions here.
Go
ahead.
I was just going to say, just when you asked me about, what is there panic with the Bengals and what's wrong with this year? You look at the 2 teams, the Bengals and the Ravens, not to bring the Bengals into every conversation, but when you lose games on the last play because even after coming back, that's a different feeling than when you've blown double-digit leads in the fourth quarter time and time again, like the Ravens had. And I don't mean just with the fan bases. I mean in the locker room.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of, sort of half-muffled, half-unmuffled talk coming out of Baltimore. What's going on here? Why does this keep happening? And it's not just a this-year problem with them. Obviously the injuries gave them a ready-made excuse last year.
Roman,
but
Greg Roman has a history of his teams performing badly in the fourth quarter. Yeah. That is true.
Yeah. And, they brought in a new defensive coordinator in part because they felt like the Wink Martindale blitz, combinations weren't working later in the games. And this hasn't really worked either. So I'm not sure where you go from here.
How's that working out for the Giants? And in the past, I always thought like the fourth down problems for Greg Roman was coming from behind. I think that was it's fourth quarter. We're playing from behind. We're not really equipped to do that. Now it's being unable to preserve a lead. By the way, Jeb Armstrong asked if we offer fantasy advice. We don't usually do that as much on the show. This is about picks for next week. We do have fantasy shows, though. Is that correct, Aaron? During the
it's not a live stream, but you can watch the fantasy discussion with Tom Strachan and Ian O'Connor on YouTube. Or the best fantasy advice is to use the fantasy projections that are part of an FO Plus subscription. Don't forget footballoutsiders.com/subscribe. You do get fantasy projections because if you ask me a should I start this guy or this guy question, I'm probably going to just look up the projections and tell you what the projections say. So it's hard to have that stuff right. It's hard to have that stuff right on the top of my memory.
But when Mike talks about Lord of the Rings or House of the Dragon, that does not count as fantasy advice.
That's a different fantasy advice. Yeah.
Very kind of right. And we also have a Discord, Jeb, by the way. We have a Discord you can join.
Oh, that's the best place to get fantasy advice is join the Football Outsiders Discord and post in either the fantasy or DFS channel, and Tom Strachan will probably respond to you with advice. And the Discord, there should be a Discord link below this show on YouTube. So get on the Football Outsiders YouTube, and we definitely talk fantasy advice there. Absolutely.
Right. By the way, going back, Perot does mention Ravens signed D-Jax. That's desperation. Yes. I don't think they need D-Jax. I think they need somebody who can be consistent catching passes, not a guy to lift the lid on that offense. And Rashad Bateman would be helpful, but I'm looking at right now, he's still sidelined for the Ravens.
I think he's supposed to be back this week.
Yeah, they're saying it's 70-30 he'll play, but obviously he's not 100% even if he does. So
we put him back in the fantasy projections this week, but it's hard, this is the first year that I've had to do weekly fantasy projections where I'm actually working on them instead of Scott Spratt and trying to figure out who to put in the projections when these guys have these limited practices on Wednesday and you're like, they might play and they might not play. Freaking hard.
Wednesday is a rest day for half these guys anyway. They don't practice whether they're really hurt or not. So it's tough. It makes you appreciate Scott, though. Nice.
The Browns are fourth rushing the ball in DVOA. The Ravens defense is 24th against the run.
Oof.
The Browns are bad against both passes and runs. I just feel like the Ravens are a really good team that's had really bad luck. And I feel like they're going to have a game where they stomp. And this feels like this could be it.
Well, they are 34-12 all time since the Modell caper and Cleveland return. Baltimore's basically owned the Browns, since '99 in that sense. Cleveland will not have Wyatt Teller, I believe, this week. So
yes, Wyatt Teller is out. That is correct.
Oh my, that's big. That is big.
And one bright spot for the Ravens defense, Travis Jones, the rookie, a giant aircraft carrier in the middle there. A little come sa as you would expect from a rookie, but he certainly seems like he's getting it a little bit figured out the last couple of weeks. He played well last week. So that could be a matchup to watch inside for the cognoscenti. We'll see if that plays out. I think, like you said, I don't know if they're a great team, but they're definitely a team that they're better than the Browns and they're better than their record indicates. I think that's fair to say. I'm talking about Baltimore.
I would go Ravens. It's Ravens 6.5, and I definitely pick Ravens with that spread.
I would take Ravens. I was just looking up when we talk about the run defenses and the running games. I was like, I want to bet the time of the game, like the actual time of play, like under 3 hours, because this is going to be so much running off tackle in the game. Can't find the prop yet. We'll probably be looking at it like a weirdo on Sunday morning, but pure
Jim Brown and Alan Amici taking handoffs. Old school
you had a prop on this one though. You send me a prop before the show.
Yes, I did send the prop before the show. Thank you very much. Oh, and it is rushing related. Nick Chubb and Lamar Jackson combined 200 plus rushing yards at plus 220.
mean, I don't know what you tell me, Aaron. Did the Patriots do anything particularly special last week to take Chubb away? Did they do the Jedi mind trick to get him to throw the ball way too often?
I don't feel like they really were and their run defense had not been good in previous weeks. But I didn't feel like there were like extra dudes in the box or anything.
What was the halftime score? It was like 20-something nothing.
I mean, that's what took away the run is that they had a big lead.
But even then, they were saying that they should. And Brissett, as you alluded to, has been, at least underlying numbers wise, pretty good this year. I mean, he's kind of in that Garoppolo territory right now, where his numbers are surprisingly good, and yet you can always count on him for the killer mistake. And obviously, he can't be your, quote unquote franchise guy going forward. But it's not like he's out there, killing the team. He's playing decently at least. So
I'd do it in part for fun.
Yeah,
because it would really give you something fun. Follow this game for.
Yes.
I feel like they're not Chubb and Jackson. I don't think Jackson will get enough yards to make that worthwhile, but at plus 220, it's not a bad gamble.
At plus 300 or so, I'd be on it. And Pierre Perot says they're doing something funky with the line. They're doing this. They're trying to hook me with the line. And it's right on the fringe. So the Teller injury worries me a little bit because like anything that like takes 6 or 7 yards away from Chubb, like off the board. So that's a concern. But I'm leaning toward it. I think
it kind of makes Myles Garrett, ironically, kind of important because his pass rush theoretically will flush Lamar and get him maybe some of those extra yards on scrambles that you weren't counting on. And Myles is not. He said it himself. Has not had a particularly impactful season just yet. Maybe this is a breakout game and he gets a lot of pressures and Lamar does his thing and swivels out. Gets you. Yeah. He was very good on Sunday.
He was good Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, maybe he's not having an impactful season by I'm one of the 5 best defensive players in the league standards.
He's having an impactful season by the I rolled my Porsche 66,000 times like 3 weeks ago standards. He's doing great.
Unbelievable. And incredible he walked away from that, much less playing.
All right, Indianapolis at Tennessee for the second time in 4 weeks, kids. Titans are favored by 2.5. This is the most important game of the week for the playoff odds.
This week sucks.
Colts make it 50% if they win, 20% if they lose. Titans make it 55% when they win, 27% when they lose. I have a bunch of notes on this game. I don't know why I took so many notes on this game. The Titans beat the Colts by 7. There were 2 Mo Alley-Cox touchdowns. The Titans mostly shut down Michael Pittman, but Alec Pierce had 80 yards. They shut down Jonathan Taylor. The Colts are actually a really good run defense.
Yes.
It's the one thing they do well.
Yes.
Except in this game. Because they let Derrick Henry go 22 for 114 with a touchdown against them. So this was the one game all year where the Colts run defense was not good.
I got a couple of notes too, in part because I just don't want to think about this game. I just wanted to go into my happy place mentally while I read things. The Titans are dead last in net yards per drive by our drive statistics, 11.94 net yards per drive. They're 31st in offensive yards per drive. They are 29th in defensive yards per drive. So this is a team that rarely drives the ball and lets other teams drive on them. And trust me, this is true. I watch a lot of Titans football, and that's true. They're 30th in other words, third most in 3 and outs per drive. The Titans go 3 and out, third most in the league. Why are they around 500? They're number 1 in red zone offense, and they're number 3 in red zone defense.
Yeah, so which is not usually sustainable.
It's not usually sustainable. Other teams drive on them and they hold them, and then when they muster a drive, they score a touchdown. That's what's getting you 500. It does not look sustainable.
Here's some other non-sustainable fun. Here's the Titans pass defense DVOA rank.
Okay, good.
31st on first down.
Okay.
32nd on second down. First on third down. Not sustainable.
Not sustainable. But anyway.
Colts. Yeah, taking the Colts.
Yeah. Even in that game you referenced when Henry had 100+ yards, I feel like, and Lord knows I didn't watch every play of this game, so I could be off on this, but I feel like that was mostly concentrated around a sort of 10 or 12 minute span of game time when he ran wild in the second quarter.
Yeah.
Colts adjusted to it a little bit, and he didn't have nearly the success he had that kind of success later in the game. I'm not saying that's going to necessarily work the same way this week, but I feel like the Colts actually played better without Taylor last week. They team with an identity crisis, and maybe just letting Matt Ryan just chuck it 100 times and not like you're like they're doing something, without playing to their strength actually helped them last week. But
here's a reason to pick.
Pass defense is terrible. So
here's the reason to pick the Titans. The Titans are the worst defense in the league against deep passes. That's where they've been really weak this year.
Mm-hmm.
But Ryan throws deep less than almost any quarterback this year.
Because he
he doesn't have the arm to take advantage of that.
Doesn't have the arm, doesn't have the time to throw. And he was picking apart the Jaguars. We're going to talk about oh my God, we're going to talk about the Jaguars.
Yes,
we're going to talk about the Jaguars in a couple of minutes. He had open guys underneath a lot. It's just like little crossing routes, those drag routes, and they were open for him. Yeah. Obviously, Matt Ryan can still do that when he's got time to read a little bit.
Right.
I don't know if that's a reason to pick the Titans though at this point. I think they cover underneath decently. I would say that.
Here's another two other interesting things. First of all, if you want a first quarter bet, I know you like first quarter bets. I mean, you really like them for night games.
Yes, but still.
Okay. The Titans are the number 1 offense and number 7 defense so far this year in the first quarter. The Colts are 27th on offense and 28th on defense so far in the first quarter.
Oh, I got to look this up, but that sounds like fun. This is a 1:00 start, right?
Yep.
So this could be an appetizer bet. It's hard for me on Sundays because I have to cover so many things. I'm taking so many notes. First quarter, have a little bet done by 1:00. Let's see. The first quarter line is Titans -1.
Yeah.
At +120, at +1.25. So you're saying the Titans are the play there, right?
Yeah, the Titans are the play.
It's happening.
Titans are the best offense in the league before halftime and the worst offense in the league after halftime.
Interesting.
Now, do you like those first quarter bets in night games so you can go to sleep at a reasonable hour? Is that the idea?
Go to sleep at a reasonable hour, like on Monday night, get my editing done on Sunday night and on Thursday night so I can hang out in the Discord with our readers. And there's something to talk about in the early part of the game when we're all still just warming up and complaining about how bad Thursday night football is.
The other bet I like in this game is the under 42.5. Colts offense bad. Titans are the slowest. Titans are the slowest paced team in the league this year.
All right, I was going to ask where they rank on that, so you had it handy. Good for you. Is it mathematically possible that an AFC South division game happens every single weekend? I mean, I don't think
they play each other 4 times this year. They play each other 4 times, I swear.
We threw in extra AFC South games just for fun.
Yeah, I think they do. Well, fun is not necessarily the operative word, right?
Fun.
Prediction.
So it sounds like you both would be on the Colts. Colts +2.5.
Yeah, I'm looking now maybe at Colts money line and under. If people are interested, that's +300. Colts money line and under +300. Colts +2.5 and under would be at +250. So it's going to be some combination like that. I'm on the Colts.
Yeah, I think I am too. Yeah, it's like you say. I just don't trust Tennessee in a lot of different ways. Not that I trust the Colts.
I don't trust either of these teams. In both.
Yeah, I don't really either. I don't know.
I think I would say Titans, but I don't make me put money on it. I'd rather play the under or that first quarter of that thing.
I don't trust the Titans. I think we've seen peak bad Colts. I think we're about to see later peak Titans.
And also, I think Jim Irsay's comment slamming Dan Snyder gives them a little bit of positive karma for this week anyway, So you go with the Colts on that one.
Irsay's got karma. That's true.
All right. AFC South. New York Giants at Jacksonville. The shocking line of Jaguars -3, where Vegas is clearly smoking what DVOA is smoking about the New York Giants and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yes, they are.
I'm shocked that they are smoking as much DVOA as they are. The Jaguars are 8th in DVOA. If you take out week 2 against the Colts, they would be 21st.
Right.
But the change is mostly defense, not on offense. Their offense has been about the same all year long. It's their defense that was phenomenal against the Colts in that game.
Yes. And their defense has been bad in many other games. It was bad against the Commanders in week 1. It was not particularly strong against the Eagles, although they had some turnover issues in that, and it was woeful against the Colts.
So here's the most interesting stat I found. The Giants, Wink Martindale, right, blitzed more than any other team.
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence was horrible against the blitz last year. Horrible. 3.9 yards per play. This year so far, he's got 6.7 yards per play against the blitz, and ESPN has him 5th in their QBR numbers.
Interesting. Well, I mean, you would expect him to improve.
I wonder how much of that is him running too. I mean, especially in the QBR.
I don't know the answer to that question, but yeah, I mean, he's more mobile than people give him credit for.
Yeah, and just anecdotally, I feel like every time I look in on them, he's just scrambling out of a blitz and making at least something happen positively, more with his legs than his arm. But this is the classic Vegas trying to get everybody to look at that number and be like, what are they smoking? As you said, either it's DVOA or something illegal, and putting heavy money down on the Giants. And then classic Giants aren't really that great either. Records inflated. They're going down to theoretically a hot game in Florida. Duval, for whatever that's worth, will be rowdy, trying to all the Giants fans down there will rev up the locals. I can definitely see where Vegas is coming from, and I can definitely see the Jags pulling a mild upset in this game too.
Which wouldn't be an upset because they're the favorites.
Right. I guess upset by going by record, not by spread.
Right. One injury to keep an eye on: left tackle of the Giants, Andrew Thomas, was limping around last week, but he's been on the injury list with an elbow injury this week. You look around at who they've got. Like, he's one of the names of guys. Like, that's an actual like Pro Bowler. There's not a lot of them running around on that field right now, and Thomas is kind of one that would qualify. So he's limited. That just saps things out. Saquon's also on the injury list. Saquon's going to play in some capacity.
Yeah. Jaguars have been excellent this year against deep passes. Daniel Jones was very good at deep passes last year, and here's the shocker. This year, the Giants throw fewer deep passes than any other offense.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though it's a Daniel Jones strength, and it's working. Daboll has that working. He has Daniel Jones moving away from his strength from last year, and it's totally working.
It is so well schemed up and designed, and I don't think it's sustainable because it's a little bit like the Falcons. Like, look at all this gingerbread, and it's getting it to work. And I can't imagine how it keeps working with these receivers, with that quarterback in these circumstances. Could still work against the Jaguars though, because you look at the Jaguars back 6, back 7.
Yeah,
there's not a lot there.
Not really. Right. I just feel like with Daboll, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's because I hear a lot of this with all the Giants fans in my life. I am from New York originally. I heard a lot of the same talk early on in the career with even Joe Judge, and you get it from a lot of coaches around the league where they start out and they're decent and they're better than the last guy, and they come in with some credentials or the Belichick patina, whatever. And it's like, oh, finally we have a coach. And then the reality of your team when they get injuries hit and other teams adjust to what you're doing and things like that, and you make a mistake here or there on the sideline, and it tends to even out. I'm not saying he's a bad coach at all. I'm just kind of let's take as Parcells would say, let's take Daboll out of the coaching hall.
That being said, he is not right now, as far as I know, he is not the favorite for Coach of the Year.
Not at all.
And I think that he's the best value for Coach of the Year.
100%. Let me pull that up for you.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have those numbers?
It will be coming because we talked about it on Monday's show with Ian O'Connor. And folks, you can catch me and Ian O'Connor wrapping up Sunday's action every Monday. But the favorite is still Nick Sirianni at plus 150. Folks, second-year coach who was a playoff coach in his first year and also a playoff coach in his second year never wins Coach of the Year. So Sirianni, barring 17-0, is not going to get the Coach of the Year vote. Brian Daboll's down to plus 450. He was around plus 600 earlier. I still think he's a value at plus 450. I don't think there's a lot of other really good candidates on the list.
Yeah. Zach Taylor on that list?
Zach Taylor. Oh, God. Sure. He's here. He's there somewhere. He's there somewhere. Arthur Smith's at plus 3,000. Zach Taylor at plus 5,000.
There you go.
So I'm buying our numbers. I'm going Jaguars -3. Also, I like over 42.
Ooh. Yeah. Jaguars plus 3 and over. What do you think?
I definitely like them plus 3.
No, it's -3. It's Jaguars -3.
Jaguars -3. Sorry, yeah, and I can see that overhitting too. It's the kind of, again, contrary thinking maybe, but kind of thinking it's a low-scoring game. The Martindale defense will confuse and confabulate, but they'll score some points, even if it's in an awkward, unusual way. I think 42 is not that high a number. Either.
Jaguars -3.5 and over on a same game. You can get that at +265. Oh, that's a lot of fun.
But that's Jaguars -3.5, not -3.
Actually, no, I was going to say, where'd you get that? Yeah. That changes everything.
Oh, because you can't with the parlay. They're going to put the half point in there to prevent.
Right. Yeah. Kansas City at San Francisco. This is the main 4 p.m. game. It's not quite as attractive as it probably was before the season because of the injuries that San Francisco is dealing with right now on defense. Bosa might be back, but not 100%. Hufanga is out. Javon Kinlaw's on IR. Al-Shaair is on IR.
Maybe.
Tavarius Ward is out. It's a lot of injuries.
Yeah, the last I heard was that Bosa and Williams are both going to try.
Trent Williams on the offensive side is supposed to be back this week, and that's good for their offense. But I'm thinking more about how they were the number 1 defense on DVOA before last week, and then everybody got hurt. And the last 2 weeks, especially last week against Atlanta, that was not the number 1 defense.
No, those were not the same guys.
And now they have to face some guy named Patrick Mahomes, and that doesn't seem to me to be a good thing.
Right.
There were an astounding number of 49ers jerseys around town, by the way, last week, or whatever that's worth.
That doesn't shock me.
They did travel, and they were not happy with what they saw.
The 49ers are actually higher in DVOA right now. They're 5th, whereas the Chiefs are 7th. But with those injuries, I just feel very strong about the Chiefs. The 49ers are – the other thing about the 49ers is this has been a weakness for a couple of years now. They're very weak against deep passes and very good against short passes. And Mahomes, this is interesting. Mahomes leads the league in total value on short passes, and he's only average on deep passes. But I still think he can take advantage of that weakness.
It's almost as if he's missing a guy that he used to throw deep to a lot. But
this might be the time for MVS to finally put up some big numbers. He's the deep threat.
He's the deep threat. Right. And you've got, with no Bosa, no Kinlaw, those guys, you've got the opportunity.
You've got the time. Yeah. Well, with probably Bosa, but probably a not 100% Bosa.
But you know who's supposed to be back from injury for the 49ers, right? In the secondary.
Jason Verrett. That'll last 2 or 3 plays.
Candyman. Don't say his name 3 times. It injures him.
Does he make it through game warm-ups is the question.
We love you, Jason. We want what's best for you, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry it happens like this, but we have to create content. Don't get hurt.
Yeah,
and good luck in your future endeavors. Because
play at least a month, for God's sake.
Get vested. If you're not vested yet, get vested. Yeah, you're going Chiefs. What is our line right now? Because I'm just going to go.
Yeah,
Chiefs.
Where are we at?
It's Chiefs -2.5. It's moved from 3 to 2.5.
Yeah, Chiefs.
I'll tell you, emotionally, I'm feeling the Chiefs more than our equation is. Our equation, the FO picks, only has the Chiefs very slightly, and it had it as a no pick when it was 3. But I feel stronger about the Chiefs than the equation does.
Right.
It is the Super Bowl 54 rematch. We should probably mention.
Yes.
Who would have thought before the season, or even last year at this point, that you'd have a Garoppolo-Mahomes rematch, right? I mean,
nobody, because we thought
things were crazy. And we are again. Yeah. Now there's some sort of karma play out where this time he hits the big pass in the fourth quarter and leads them to victory in a much less meaningful game.
Based on NFL history, Garoppolo has to eventually become Mahomes' backup.
Right. I was going to go there next. It's very true. The ties at quarterback between these two franchises are long and deep. No question about it.
Trey Lance has to eventually replace Mahomes, right? I mean,
certainly it seems like that'll be the way it works, at least for 1 year.
All right, one more game to talk about. That's the night game, which is Pittsburgh at Miami. I didn't say we have to talk about it much, but we should talk about it. It is on nationwide.
Go get an injury update.
I'm not making you guys talk about the Patriots and the Bears.
Oh God, I don't want to do the what's wrong with Justin Fields? Is he not seeing open receivers? Is the offensive line actually secretly good? I don't want to do that. So I want to look up an injury, not to our friend Tua, but to a much more important person on that offense.
Who is out, I believe.
Is Armstead out?
Last I heard, but I mean, no, not definitely officially out, but I mean, it's not trending in a good direction is what I heard.
Waddle, I think, is as of 1 hour ago, Terran Armstead is back at practice.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected.
So this is a two-situation game, and Waddle's important too.
But again, there's a reason why we count questionable guys as partial when we do adjusted games lost. Like Armstead may play, but he's not going to be at 100%. He's not necessarily going to be at 100%.
Yeah, he definitely
20%. He's better than Greg Little.
Yes. Also, Perot LeFou points out this is Brian Flores versus the Dolphins ownership.
Yeah.
In the parking lot, anyway.
Yeah, I don't know how to factor assistant coach versus owner who's just exiting this quasi-suspension that no one even cares about.
I don't know what to think about Miami. Their offense is 6th in DVOA based entirely on 2 games.
Yes.
Right? Weeks 2 and 3. Otherwise, their offense has been very average. Their pass defense has been very bad, including 31st against short passes.
Huh.
Right? Which, I mean, you would have to expect. If I think it's going to be Pickett. I think Pickett is practicing. He's out of concussion protocol. And here's a really weird statistical combo I found. Miami has a strong pass rush. They were very strong in pressure rate last year. They're 30th in pressure rate this year, according to PFR.
Yeah.
That feels wrong.
Just teams getting the ball out quickly against them for
I don't
whatever
know,
reason.
man. It's weird. I don't know.
Teams getting the ball out quick. I mean, the Vikings, that they run a system that's going to prevent pressure because they're going to be in 2 tight ends a lot. They had the lead a lot. They're going to run so much rollout stuff that you're not going to get a lot of just clean pass rushes against them. That might have been part of it. But the offense is easy to understand. If you've got Armstead at left tackle, if you got Waddle and Hill, and if you've got Tua, you have a strong offense there. You have an offense that's going to be challenging to defend. When you start taking pieces away from it, they don't have. Quarterback, they do have Teddy Bridgewater. Skyler actually looked okay too. You take away your left tackle, replace him with nothing. You take away Waddle, and you realize they don't have a lot of depth at playmakers. Then you have a very different team.
Yeah, and
they were supposed to. Cedric Wilson was supposed to be useful. He hasn't really done much this year.
Not yet. And Pittsburgh, I think they really circled that game last week, even though they. Probably because they were missing a bunch of defensive starters, they came out with their hair on fire and just played exceptionally well defensively in that game. I question how sustainable that is, even getting some guys back. And it felt like they were playing well above themselves, and they're due for a bit of a letdown going on the road. I think a lot of people were expecting to see them, be a steel curtain-esque defense again in this week. I have my doubts about that. Not that they'll be blown out per se.
No, I think what's more likely is that they're better than anyone expects on offense and not as good as people expect.
Not as good on defense, right.
Miami is poor on pass defense, and the Steelers are 31st running the ball. Miami is 7th against the run. They should pass the ball in this game. I know that sounds like, rookie quarterback, they don't want to pass the ball. They should pass the ball. They want to pass the ball in this game.
Is there an over-under prop on concussions suffered by the quarterbacks?
So I'm not even going to look it up. I'm not typing that into my browser. But I feel a very possible scenario in this is, let me clear my history. A scenario is that if Tua is back, if they have decent protection at left tackle, that this game tilts in the Dolphins' favor early. The Steelers can't do we can play short passing game and catch up. I feel like this game could get away from the Steelers early.
So if the line is Dolphins -7.
What's that high? Wow. I did
not realize. I'm not touching it without Armstead information. I'm not touching it. I would take that if I know Terran Armstead's at left tackle.
I'll take Steelers. Steelers +7.
They're a hard team to beat by a lot. I mean, I know it's happened, in a couple of fluke circumstances, but I mean, just even when Pittsburgh doesn't play well, they find a way to make games close.
Yeah.
And, with all the mystery surrounding Miami's offense, that seems like a lot of points to me too.
Right.
All right, that does it for week 7, folks. Thank you to everybody who's listening to this as a podcast. Thank you to everybody who's watching the live stream. Thank you to people who commented during the show. Again, like and subscribe to the show. Tell your friends about the show. Spread the word about the show. Don't forget to check out Football Outsiders live streams every day, Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Twitch. And check out our sponsors at Underdog Fantasy. Use code OUTSIDERS to match your deposit up to $100. Get on the Discord. Ask us your fantasy questions. All the links are below here on YouTube. And check out all the content on Football Outsiders. And thank you all for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Because this week, it sucks.
It sucks, but Rob, you were very good. Thank you for not
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it as always, guys.